explained that the budget reflects the administration's determination to move the country from survival to growth, while deepening fiscal discipline, improving revenue performance, and delivering measurable outcomes for citizens.
Well, still on the budget, President Bola Tinubu has earmarked 5.41 trillion naira for defense and internal security, making it the single largest sectoral allocation in the 2026 fiscal plan. The president said his government was resetting the national security architecture and rolling out a new counter-terrorism doctrine built on unified command, intelligence-driven operations, and community stability. According to him, henceforth, and under this new architecture, any armed group or gun-wielding non-state actors operating outside state authority will be regarded as terrorists. He listed bandits, militias, armed gangs, kidnappers, violent cult groups, as well as their financiers, facilitators, and political protectors as culprits. Apart from security, Tinubu allocated 3.56 trillion naira to infrastructure, 3.52 trillion naira to education, and 2.48 trillion naira to health, noting that no nation can grow beyond the quality of its people. He said the Nigerian Education Loan Fund has so far supported over 418,000 students across tertiary institutions nationwide. On the economy, Tinubu reaffirmed his administration's push for agricultural reforms, expanded mechanization, irrigation, and agro-value chains, stating that food security is national security as the government seeks to tame food inflation and reduce import dependence.
Meanwhile, the Federal Executive Council, FEC, had earlier approved a 58.47 trillion naira budget proposal for the 2026 fiscal year, with 34.33 trillion naira as the retained revenue. Director General of the Budget Office of the Federation, Tanimu Yakubu, disclosed this to newsmen after the FEC meeting at the presidential villa in Abuja. Yakubu explained that the aggregate expenditure for the 2026 budget proposal is 6% higher than the 2025 budget estimate. According to him, this includes projected spending of government-owned enterprises amounting to 4.98 trillion naira and 1.37 trillion naira for grants and donor-funded projects.
In the meantime, President Bola Tinubu has transmitted fresh appropriation, repeal, and reenactment bills for the 2024-2025 fiscal years to the House of Representatives. The president requested legislative approval to reset Nigeria's budget framework in line with current fiscal realities, improve implementation discipline, and end the overlap of multiple running budgets. In a letter of December 18, 2025, addressed to the Speaker, Tajuddin Abbas, he asked the National Assembly to consider the bills in accordance with the established constitutional and legislative appropriation process. Under the proposal, the president is seeking the repeal of the 2024 Appropriation Act of 35.06 trillion naira and its reenactment at 43.56 trillion naira to be issued from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation. Among others, the revised 2024 framework provides for 1.74 trillion naira in statutory transfers, 8.27 trillion naira for debt service, 11.27 trillion naira for recurrent non-debt expenditure, and 0.28 trillion naira for capital expenditure and development fund contributions for the year ending December 31, 2025.
Away from that, President Bola Tinubu says he has assured the United States and European partners of implementing the creation of state police, stating that it must happen as part of efforts to improve internal security and strengthen governance at a sub-national level. Tinubu, who spoke at the 14th National Caucus meeting of the All Progressive Congress in Abuja, also urged state governors to stop withholding funds meant for cancer chairpersons, insisting the local government autonomy must work in practical terms. His comments came amid the rising security pressures across the country, renewed calls for decentralized policing, and the push to implement the Supreme Court judgment on local government autonomy and direct allocation to councils. Meanwhile, he charged the party to show leadership through reconciliation, accommodation, and flexibility at a grassroots level, while urging governors and other stakeholders to take responsibility for what happens in their states and local governments.
In another development, operatives of the Federal Capital Territory FCT Police Command have filed attempts by criminal elements to move the vandalized transformers and electricity distribution armored cables, which they had earlier vandalized, to their buyers. The tinted glass vehicle conveying the stolen cables had an accident after the driver sighted a police patrol team, following which they escaped. On approaching the vehicle, the patrol team discovered 131 vandalized electricity distribution cables inside. FCT Commissioner of Police Mila Dantawaye told newsmen in Abuja that since its assumption of duty in October, the command has arrested 160 criminal elements.
Now we move on to politics. The Supreme Court has dismissed as lacking in merit and purely academic an appeal by the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) challenging the leadership of the Social Democratic Party (SDP). In a unanimous decision, the Apex Court also awarded a cost of 2 million naira against INEC's counsel. INEC had approached the Apex Court to overturn the October 17 judgment of the Court of Appeal Abuja Division, which affirmed a ruling of the Federal High Court compelling the electoral body to recognize and include SDP candidates in by-elections conducted across 12 states of the Federation. In the suit, the party challenged INEC's refusal to recognize its candidates for the by-elections in spite of the fact that the Commission monitored the primaries that produced them. Dismissing the appeal, a 5-member panel of the Apex Court held that the matter had become an academic exercise, noting that the by-elections had already been conducted and the winners sworn into office.
In the meantime, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has charged the two rival factions of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) to urgently put their house in order ahead of the critical off-season elections. INEC gave the advice during a meeting with the factions PDP in Abuja, attended by the Taminu Turaki-led bloc and the faction led by Abdul Rahman Mohammed and backed by Federal Capital Territory Minister Nyesom Wike. Turaki arrived with members of his National Working Committee, former Niger State Governor Dr. Babangida Aliyu, and Secretariat staff, while Mohammed was accompanied by members of his caretaker committee, including the Secretary Senator Sam Anyanwu. INEC Chairman Professor Joash Amupiton told both sides that the Commission had been inundated with various conflicting correspondences from the contending actors in the party, prompting the need for a joint dialogue. Appearing keen to avoid ministering elections while the main opposition party remains fractured, Amupiton said that INEC is determined to follow the provisions of the law and to move forward as a family.
The Coalition of Magistrates, Presidents of Grade A Customary Courts and Legal Research Officers in Ondo State has vowed to withdraw its services from January 5, 2026 over the state executive's alleged continued lip service to the judiciary's financial autonomy. It stated that the lack of genuine implementation of judicial financial autonomy has severely affected the welfare of judicial officers, operational efficiency, dignity of office, and institutional support required for an effective justice delivery system. In a position letter submitted to the offices of the Ondo State Chief Judge of the State and President of the Customary Court of Appeal, the coalition lamented that its members have been subjected to persistent denial of several welfare entitlements. It listed them to include the provision of official vehicles, improved allowances, and other essential support necessary for the effective discharge of their duties.
Let's take you to Edo State now, where government has announced a 2026 measles rubella vaccine campaign targeting children aged 9 months to 14 years, announcing the drive Deputy Governor Dennis Idahosa said it is intended to boost rural primary health care, strengthen immunity, and prevent disease outbreaks. Our correspondent Rhoda Johnny has details.
The Deputy Governor of Edo State, Honorable Dennis Idahosa, has directed that the primary healthcare facilities in rural communities be strengthened to improve access to essential health services. Idahosa gave the directive while chairing the fourth quarterly meeting of the State Primary Healthcare Task Force in Benin City, where he urged local government chairmen to expand healthcare delivery across the state. The statement was confirmed by his Chief Press Secretary Friday Angedo. The Deputy Governor said the 2026 measles rubella vaccine campaign will target children aged 9 months to 14 years, regardless of previous vaccination, to boost herd immunity.
This is the first time the task force is holding 4 quarterly meetings in a year, and we've achieved that milestone. And there is room for improvement. By the grace of God, next year, 2026, will be way greater than this year, 2025. And we are very optimistic about that. We've met with all the 18 local government council chairmen, the development partners, civil society, the rep from religious leaders, and we've deliberated extensively. I believe for the year 2026, all the lapses that we had in 2025 will be addressed and will make more progress in 2026. And also, we intend to go round the first quarter of next year, which is between January and March. We intend to go round in all the 192 primary healthcare centers across the state.
The Commissioner for Health noted the campaign is crucial to protecting children and preventing disease outbreaks, adding that preparations are underway to ensure vaccines, trained health workers, and coverage of rural communities across the state.
Primary health care is the first point of care for our people, especially women, children, and the most vulnerable. Over the past months, we have made progress in coordination, facility revitalization, community engagement, and partner collaboration across 18 local government areas in the state. However, this meeting also gives us the opportunity to reflect honestly, identify gaps, and strengthen accountability.
In Benin, Rhoda Johnny, UOP TV News.
Rhoda, thank you. Well, joining us virtually to analyze these stories is a finance and economics expert and public affairs commentator, Chijoke Oji. Chijoke, it's a pleasure to welcome you back again. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Yeah. So a lot has happened today. For starters, President Bola Tinubu has presented to a joint session of the National Assembly the 2026 appropriation bill, saying it is a critical step in consolidating recent economic reforms and steering Nigeria towards stability and inclusive growth. But listen, Chijoke, this is the name it was called, right? It is called a budget of consolidation, renewed resilience, and shared prosperity. Does that, make you optimistic in any way?
Well, the presentations are always usually very wonderful. The perception is also very wonderful. We have the same beautiful presentations and renditions of songs in the 2024 and the 2025 budget. See, the challenge we are still facing as a nation is the issue of strengthening our laws, especially with implementation of laws. When these budgets are passed, funds are released, there is no ministry today in Nigeria without the directors, the permanent secretary, the ministers, or whoever is at the epic of the head of the agencies that have not at any point or the other been found wanting with looting and corruption. And all of these things are funds that were meant for budgets implementations. So what it simply means that the government had projected ways to better the lives of Nigerians by either infrastructure or in otherwise investment in improving the service delivery or even the lives and the ordinary persons on the street. But in most cases, people will always divert and take these funds, or in most cases, there's always an abandoned project or halfway done. And the government has not shown its stride to ensuring the recovery of those funds and ensuring the stoppage or the loopholes or the leakages that occur with these budgets. And that is why such rhetorics would not move any individual who has been a follower, ardent follower of the developments of our dear nation in the past 25 years and more. Because from the 1999 till date, at every budget presentation, we've always had these same rhetorics. And then at the end of the day, the individuals where the buck stops on the table fail to hold those who have looted our treasury and who have, in one way or other, done something very grievous to our dear nation, especially in the misappropriation, misapplication of these funds. So if the budget of the 2026 that is coming on flow, without us asking the question of implementation of the 2025 budget, which is expected to run and with the termination of March 2026, which the president is now seeking to have a single rolling budget of each year, which is expected to commence from the April of 2026. We do hope that this time there will be accountability. We do hope this time there will be difference in what has happened with over the previous years. Because, for instance, the area of security, which has become the palatial gift or the breads with various administrations, even before the Jonathan era, and during the Jonathan era, and continued during the Buhari regime, and currently with the present administration, which has shown not to have thorough accountability, especially in the area of security, where Nigerians now should be asking questions. If the various ministries of defense and the apparatuses have been negotiating with terrorists and have been paying them, and also have been meeting them and paying them monthly allowances, what are you overhauling with 5.4 or 5-point-something plus trillion? Is it to continue the payment, or is the payoff to the individuals involved in this so that they will no longer disturb the state of the nation? We want to, first of all, clearly get this whole mindset of the present administration. But as regards the words, we're already used to the beautifying packaging words that goes along with the budget presentation. What Nigerians have been looking for is the implementation of the budget and then accountability of the previous budgets. Because it is our right to demand, it is also our right to get answers to.
Okay, Chijioke, one of the things the president said while he was presenting the budget was that he explained that the budget reflects the administration's determination to move the country from survival to growth. But I want to ask you, how would the budget, or how do you think the budget that we've seen today presented by the president, how would it translate to an ordinary Nigerian? How would we begin to enjoy, an ordinary Nigerian who is suffering from inflation, for unemployment and all of that? How will this budget actually affect an ordinary Nigerian?
I can tell you for a fact that this budget would not do the delivery of translating or transforming Nigeria to the production units. Because here, the president is saying one thing, and we're also looking at the other. For the first time in the history of our dear nation, we are going to be servicing the debts, not repayments. It's debt servicing. And I think it's better we'll create a day to educate Nigerians on what the word debt servicing actually entails and what it means. If a nation will be spending about 15-point-something trillion to service debts, then it calls for a bigger concern. Because you should also weigh in to compare what is our current GDP to the debts we're servicing? Which should give us a favorable outlook or projections for medium term and then a long term. Because if indeed you spend so much more to fund the debts, then how much do you intend as a dear nation to project for productions? When indeed Nigerians are crying over the misinformation regarding the tax laws that is meant to generate, we are now seeing a country that has not been able to reach a capacity of production of 1.8 million barrels a day, is now projecting the 2026 budget on the output that has not been achieved thus far. It is not to say that, yes, you have been on this figure for a while. You can say you can sustain it. But then you are now saying that this is how, based on this, which is an assumption. And let's not forget that this is a country that was producing 2.4 million barrels at the point. It dropped to 2.3 million barrels, and then all to a point where, when the former Minister of Petroleum, Chief Timi Principal, was in power, it dropped to about 700 or even less than 700,000 barrels per day. And let us not forget that the majority source of funding for our national budget is on recruit. So let's even give the new administration some sort of recognition by at least improving or blocking the loopholes. Today we can say they're now doing in excess of about 1.4 million barrels a day. But the projections cannot be set right, because if you don't meet that assumption, that means you'll be forced to borrow with already a deficit of over 23 trillion. It means now that the continued loan financing and management will definitely be altered. So where then will you not have the strength for the production? What are you setting aside for production? When all the whole mindset has been geared towards exportation of the raw materials, that when it leaves the shore of the country is worthless in terms of the revenue that comes to us. It is the same product that actually come back to us as finished or semi-finished in 10 times the value. So where then are we now encouraging the local production or the capacity to produce when the ones that are even trying on daily basis are being choked? Today we are being bombarded with the FRS sending businesses that have not earned a dime, a BOG, best of judgment, to pay in excess of 33 million. Where will such businesses survive to produce when it can show clearly that they have not done anything in services? So we must, as a country, either be setting ourselves up for jokes or imaginative thinking, because figures don't lie. If we must make progress as a nation, the first thing would be, first of all, to live on a realistic figure. They have also set a benchmark of 1,400 exchange to the dollar, when we continue to see a fluctuation of the same forex markets that Nigeria says it has left floating. If your favorable balance of trade is in default, how then do you expect to strengthen the naira against the dollar and other foreign currencies? It is a huge joke. It is. And it is laughable that the individuals are expecting Nigerians to believe the same thing. No, it is not possible.
But
the first things to address will be, how do we strengthen our local industries? We have not seen it in the budget. What provisions have you made for people now to access, some sort of capitals for their businesses? We have not seen it. Although I'm here to digress the whole or dissect the whole budget, but it's the usual format, copy and paste. Nothing has really changed apart from certain areas of figures or trying to reflect some certain areas, to seem to have been pruned down or adjusted in all other areas that seem to be key areas.
Well, let me come in here, Chijoke. You said you've not digested the whole budget yet, but I'm not sure if you've seen this. I'm talking about the single largest sectorial allocation in 2026 fiscal plan. Guess which sector took it? President Tinubu said he's ready to fight insecurity to a standstill. But before we talk about that, there is something you said earlier on, that we need to be realistic. And you talked about the benchmark, and you're saying it is very unrealistic. What then would you say is a realistic benchmark?
Good. The first thing the presidency ought to have done is, since we're expecting or projecting to produce at 1.8 million barrels a day, what have you put in place to ensure that that is functioning? Is it by allowing certain private individuals to take over Ajip and Co. in a disputed matter that many have found very unsettling? You have not allowed for fairness and equity in the same industry that is the lifeline of the nation. The first thing would also be to address the issues that many Nigerians are begging for answers. I want to first of all thank Aliko Dangote for the giant move he made in the current revelation to Nigerians. But while we're thanking him also for the effort he's making towards creating more scholarships, which I believe is a result of the letters I wrote to his foundation about 2 or 3 weeks ago, urging him to contribute more in the education of the Fulanis so that we can have these issues rested, because an educated man will never be seen wandering in the forest. Putting that aside, Nigeria had had so many leakages in various areas that till today, nobody has been held accountable. While Aliko Dangote was rendering to Nigerians his private investigation finding on Farouk, we didn't hear anything about the former GMD of NNPC, Melekare, believing that we had acquired 20% of the Dangote refinery, which was supposed to be now a public liability company, that Nigeria has been given the opportunity. The word used was given a benevolence opportunity to acquire 20%. Dangote came out to clarify, to say, no, it is not 20%, because the only amount contributed was less than $10 billion. I think it was a figure of about $8 billion or so. Nigerians didn't ask a question. The current administration didn't ask a question to say, how come single individuals were able to negotiate this on behalf of 200-something million people as projected? If we're to use the word of the First Lady, who says Nigeria now without census is 250 million people. Let's even put that aside. Now these figures are leakages because the same Dangote is not showing to Nigerians how dividend is now being paid back to the dear nation. Because if a nation has invested over $8 billion, what has it received since it is now well over a year that the Dangote refinery has continued production or commenced production? Now, the presidency should have first of all set in the goals to block all the leakages and then ensure that all funds, while you are trying to run a single budget for each year, ensure that now you now have a TSA, single treasury account, where all funds are being deposited and utilized from. That all funds that are recovered also are being seen clearly and can be monitored by Nigerians from all across the sectors, especially in the implementation and the usage of these funds, because it has become a national fund and not a public issue. One would have expected that while Farouk is being probed, Melaya should be explaining to Nigeria how the transaction that took place, and apart from that, well, apart from Melaya, there are also so many of them who have done the same issues and have continued to do the same thing under the current administration. If the presidency is to succeed in bringing about changes or turnaround in the country, the first thing would be to ensure that all the loopholes and leakages are blocked. Then we can now look for the word accountability, ensuring that whoever stands on man's any ministry or any parastatal is held accountable to the last couple about expenditures. Today, I keep saying it, ministries and MDAs, directors and ministers have been flying about different countries with no aim, with no achievements, and then all of this thing is funded by the taxpayers from the same budget each year, and at the end of the day, nobody has time to assess what these ministries have achieved, especially in the delivery of this current administration.
But Chijoke, I have just 5 more minutes with you, and I need you to deal with 2 questions, right? So forgive me for butting it the way I just butting in. the way I just did. So, like I said earlier on, President Tinubu has earmarked 5.41 trillion naira for defense and internal security, making it the single largest sectorial allocation in the budget. Now, juxtapose that to what the Senate President said shortly after this was mentioned, that regarding the withdrawal of police escorts from VIP, the President should review it and consider what his colleagues are saying, that his colleagues asked him to beg the President not to withdraw their their police escorts because they were scared of going home. What do you make of this and the fact that defense has backed the largest allocation for the 2026 fiscal plan?
Well, incidentally, let me just tell Nigerians the truth. We have not ever seen an effective disbursement of the defense budget in the past 10, 15 years. Why? Because it's a key area that has always been used as a compensation and a salary gift. Incidentally, the next year is an election year, if we have been following the circles of administration of Nigeria. The year previous to the year of handover is usually an election year. So we hope and pray that it is different, and that the current Minister of Defense will see it as an opportunity not to mess up the career that so many have praised him to have served the nation well. Now is his hands in the cookie jar. We do hope that it is not the opportunity to disburse, as we had a one-time former military personnel in the person of Dasuki, who was the former National Security Advisor to the President then under Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, who became the disbursement officer of the sharing of the lootings, which till today have not been resolved, and no accountability has been held towards all of those wastages and the lives of innocent Nigerians that have been killed and wasted over these years. We do hope that this is not the same usual election monies that have now been focused on defense. And usually it is the disbursement times. Those who are celebrating now know already what they're getting. So we do hope Nigerians will now ask for accountability, especially from the 2024-2025 disbursements that have all taken place. The 2026 usually is the largest year of a year before the election, because this is the first time we started hearing of elections 2 years ahead of the election time. So Nigerians should be on the lookout and ensure that we follow it to the last kobo, how these expenditures have been done. Coming back to the request by the Senate President, it's extremely laughable. Laughable in the sense that individuals that have been pampered, taken care of, over abused the systems. Abuse the system in the sense that it is no longer a privilege. It is now seen as a right. They should understand that even in other nations where Akpabio, goes to for treatments, that no senator is allocated the amount of police officers or the military escorts that they enjoy in Nigeria, because they know that they have messed up the entire nation, they have crippled the economy, so they continue to use the same poor people to protect themselves. The president has done the needful by ensuring that there's accountability in the area of policing. If he revokes or for any reason gives in to these individuals, then we can as well say we have all been sold and it is irreversible, because no previous administration has succeeded, which I want to give him or cut him a slack as a new word of commending the president based on the First Lady's recommendation. We want to cut him a slack for that bold move in withdrawing these escorts. Let these individuals for once feel that they're human beings. Imagine Akpabio going with motorcades, all kinds of, and don't you see the kind of escort that he parades around? And this is replicated in Abuja, replicated in every state he goes across. The same thing with the speakers. Every state where they go, they have motorcades all packed, and it's shameful that a nation that is said to be poor is displaying this enormous wealth and still goes cap in hand going to beg these world leaders for money. It must end, because the same 2026 budget will never be implemented without borrowings. Nigerians must see it, that it is this attitude that will continue to send the same nation back to, very uncomfortable situation.
Okay.
And we must, as a people, demand for accountability and ensure that there's a real change. The change must begin with the people at the top. They should, first of all, be held accountable to Nigerians who have.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chijioke, for being with us on the News Hour. Thank you very much for analyzing intelligently as always.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're still watching the News Hour on Voice of the People television. We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll bring you more stories.
Welcome back, everyone. And now the Chinese government says it has trained over 10,000 Nigerians across critical sectors as part of efforts to strengthen people-to-people relations and deepen the China-Nigeria cooperation. Disclosing this at the first annual China-Nigeria Government Exchange Program at Union Gala in Abuja, China's ambassador to Nigeria, Yu Dunhai, said the reunion was designed to strengthen networks among program alumni, encourage the exchange of ideas, and enhance their collective contribution to bilateral relations. He explained that China's training support for Nigerians covers governance, poverty alleviation, agriculture, manufacturing, public health, trade investment, science and technology, innovation, and the blue and digital economies. According to Dunhai, the initiative has helped build individual skills and support Nigeria's broader economic and social development with beneficiaries spread across the entire nation. On economic cooperation, Dunhai disclosed that bilateral trade between both countries has exceeded $22 billion this year, already surpassing last year's total.
We now move on to the foreign scene. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has condemned the Houthi detention of another 10 of the world baddest personnel in Yemen, taking the total to 69. UN spokesperson Stephen Dujarric said the Iran-aligned Houthis detained additional staff on Thursday, adding that Guterres calls for the immediate release of all those detained. According to Dujarric, these detentions render the delivery of UN humanitarian assistance in Houthi-controlled areas untenable and directly affects millions of people in need, limiting the access to life-saving assistance. The UN has repeatedly rejected Houthi accusations that itself or its staff's operations in Yemen were involved in spying. Houthis have controlled most of Yemen, including the capital, Sana'a, since seizing power in 2014 and early 2015.
Well, in business news, the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, NCAA, has granted full certification to Malam Aminu Kano International Airport, Kano, and Obafemi Awolowo International Airport, Port Harcourt. According to the Managing Director of the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria, FAN, Olubunmi Kuku, their certification reinforces confidence among airlines, assures passengers of FAN's commitment to world-class safety standards, and enhances Nigeria's standing within the global aviation community. Kuku acknowledged the NCAA's observations about outstanding items in the corrective action plan, assuring that the team has been activated to address them with urgency and precision. She described the development as a powerful testament to resilience, dedication, and a shared commitment to the highest standards of aviation safety in Nigeria, adding that the true success story is in its exemplary interagency cooperation.
We now move on to sports. Nigeria's Super Eagles have appointed midfielder Wilfred Ndidi as its new captain, following the recent retirement of Ahmed Musa and William Troost Ekong. Ndidi has been handed the armband after previously serving the stand-in captain on several occasions when both Musa and Trust Ekong were unavailable. With both now retired from international football, Ndidi has officially been entrusted with a leadership role. Speaking on the responsibility, Ndidi described it as a huge responsibility, adding, however, that with the help of the players, everything will go smoothly. Of the forthcoming Africa Cup of Nations, AFCON, and the team's objective, Ndidi said that he has held conversations with the players, trying to make them understand the reason they are in Morocco. He explained that they also need support from the staff and to have conversations about what is ahead, noting that it is very important that everyone is on the same page. He further commended the leadership and influence of his predecessor, William Trust Ekong, describing him as a great leader who spoke and stood for the team, adding that he would be sorely missed.
Well, in entertainment news, the National Film and Video Censors Board, NFVCB, says it has requested from the producers a title modification on the controversial film A Very Dirty Christmas, produced by ace Nollywood actress Ini Edo and released in cinemas on the 16th of December. The title of the family drama has attracted public backlash and a complaint from the Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, which described it as offensive and a mockery of the Christian faith. In a statement to that effect, CAN criticized the title for associating a sacred season with the term dirty and by so doing diminishing its spiritual meaning. Calling for a retightening and a public apology, CAN also indicted NFVCB, under which official scrutiny and approval it passed for public exhibition. Disclosing the NFVCB's decision in Abuja, however, Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer Dr. Shaibu Hussaini explained that the title was approved due to the fact that it is an act of fictional and creative expression.
On a cheery note, Nigerian Afrobeat heavyweights such as Burna Boy and Olamide are among the standout acts selected in the 2025 Music Picks by former President of the United States, Barack Obama. Obama unveiled them alongside others in his yearly compilation of favorite books, films, and songs in continuation of a tradition he began while in office. Announcing the release on his X handle, Obama highlighted Burna Boy's Ta 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 featuring Travis Scott, as well as Olamide's 99 featuring Decom, Shay Vibes, Ashake, and Young John as some of his favorite songs of the year. Also included is Not in Surrender by British-Nigerian singer Obon Yaga, further underscoring the global reach of African music. Meanwhile, several international stars also made a list, including Kendrick Lamar, SZA, Lady Gaga, Ghana, and Canadian rapper Drake.
Well, that wraps it up for us on News Hour. But before we go, a quick look at the headlines. We told you that Tinubu has presented a 58 trillion naira budget and has promised reforms, consolidation, shared prosperity.
Also, FEC approved 58.4 trillion naira 2026 budget proposal.
Tinubu also seeks repeal, reenactment of 2024-2025 budgets.
Tinubu assures of state police creation.
Also, Supreme Court dismisses INEC's appeal and awards SDP 2 million naira costs.
INEC charges PDP groups to put house in order.
On the foreign scene, Guterres condemns Houthis' detention of another 10 UN staff.
In business, Kano, Port Harcourt Airport fully NCAA certified.
Well, in sports news, Ndidi becomes Super Eagles captain.
And in entertainment, NFVCB seeks title change for A Very Dirty Christmas. Do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel. On YouTube, we are Voice of the People TV. And on other social media platforms, we are at VOP TV Live. If you witness news happening around you, we want to hear from you. Send your eyewitness reports, event coverage, request, photos, or videos directly via WhatsApp to 0814-606-4057. You can also reach our newsroom by email at news@vop.ng. I am Nenna Ndomdioto.
And I am Vivian Oguche. Thank you for watching.
VOP TV. Now, you have more than a voice. Do you want your voice to be heard? Do you know that you matter in the scheme of things? The People's Voice, the show where ordinary citizens take center stage as we discuss the biggest stories that affect you and I. With you in mind, we facilitate lively discussions, debates, and interviews on the topics that matter most to you and I, from social justice to economic empowerment, education to healthcare, governance, and more, tackling tough topics and amplifying your voice. Join the conversation and make your voice count. The People's Voice. Make your voice count.
We encourage you to click on the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are Voice of the People TV. Also follow us on all our social media platforms. We are at VOP TV Live. Visit our website www.vop.ng for fresh and trending news. Also watch us live on SLTV channel 264. VOP TV, Voice of the People Television.
Behind every broken desk lies a broken promise. Education shapes the nations. But who is asking the right questions? Introducing Edu Dialogue, the show that goes beyond the surface, exposes the cracks, the corruption, and the silence in Nigeria's education system. Edu Dialogue, Saturdays, 3 p.m., only on VOP TV. We break the biggest stories, from missing funds to policy failures. We ask the tough questions and demand real answers. Edu Dialogue, this Saturday, 3 p.m. on Voice of the People Television.
In a world where truth is the ultimate power and opinions scream the loudest, it's time to wade through the noise.
Hunger no get tribe! Hunger no get religion!
And scan the human interest and trending topics that matter. Stay tuned to The Issues, your plug to the stories making the buzz, from politics to science and technology and more. Let's tackle the tough questions and expose the truth. The Issues on Voice of the People Television, Mondays to Fridays, 8 to 9 p.m. The Issues. Don't just react, understand. VOP TV. Now, you have more than a voice. The Oluwo Fish Market, also known as the Ekpe Fish Market, is the biggest fish market in Lagos State. It's located in Ekpe, Lagos State, Nigeria. The Oluwo Fish Market traders are mostly women because of the chain of distribution, which allows the fishermen to catch the fish and deliver them to the traders, who in turn sell them to the retailers. This strategically located fish market is the biggest in Lagos and reported to be as old as the city of Ekpe, even though the date of the official commissioning of the market is dated 10th November 1989. The name of the market is derived from the name of the family that sold the land it occupies to the state government, the Oluwo family, while chief that most locals call it is the traditional title of the Oluwos. The market is said to have been initially located at the marina front, a short distance from the present abode, before it became too small to accommodate the number of traders' influx. For anyone that have heard of the Ekpe town being referred to as the fish basket of the state,